motion of thanks.
Ms. Trophy Chen. Thank you, Madam Deputy. For this session, I will discuss healthcare. My heartfelt gratitude goes to the SCL government for its importance attached to healthcare and their resolve to get reform through. And this shows initiative and foresight in policy making that's motivating, and this merits support. There will be an office for introducing medicine and medical devices. This shows initiative rather than reaction, and we are moving on to a new stage in healthcare. Since 2022, we have been working with patients groups. We have been raising matters about this lengthy process of putting drugs on the drug formulary. Now, for each policy address, the FTU has been calling for the use of drugs allowed in the mainland to be used in Hong Kong. We have been calling for faster access, cheaper access. This year's policy address has measures on drugs. There's the 1+ mechanism. There are measures on medical research, etc. 1+ as a measure responds to calls made by the FTU. We worked with the mainland institution on a report. That report did not come out soon enough to be on stream before the PA, but it's about shortening the time it takes to introduce new drugs, especially the drugs for rare diseases. We want faster access to a greater variety of treatment options for patients. We should use this GBA clinical trial platform to get more drug makers to come here. Let's bring in more medical devices so that we consolidate our role as a medical hub. GBA clinical trials aside, let's also give thought to a GBA alliance for drug makers. With these measures, we can achieve 4 outcomes. First, we can make ourselves more competitiveness in drug making. We can get more drug makers to come here for registration. I believe the medical sector will welcome that. That will also bring hope for patients, so that's a win for patients as well. During our Session 2 debate, the Financial Secretary mentioned economic benefits. We bring in drug makers, the economy will also win. And finally, we will help our mainland drug makers go global, so that's another positive outcome. Both the policy address and previous budget have discussed healthcare, and I know the mainland pharmaceutical sector is keen. Every time major policies came out in Hong Kong, we got in touch with the mainland. There's a professor at Fudan University. This professor focuses on researching cancer drugs. It's a kind of compound based on antibodies. This fuses chemotherapy and antibody therapy. This can target tumor cells. Cancer patients can live for an extra 3 to 5 years because of the treatment. A physician at an affiliate hospital of Fudan University mentioned the potential of this treatment to go global. So we should be cutting red tape for our healthcare policies so that we can bring in new treatments. And we can also help the mainland's innovative treatments to go global. And let's also further enhance the measure of allowing Hong Kong drugs and Hong Kong treatments in the mainland. We should expand the coverage to rare diseases and also cancers. Let's make healthcare more accessible. We also need more coordinated regulation. Let's do mutual and reciprocal recognition so that we can avoid overlapping unnecessary approval. And we should also bring in an express approval mechanism for treatments and drugs. Try out the treatment first and we provide the documentation later. All that can speed up the approval of treatments. Now I'll turn to family medicine and screening. Let's beef up the service capacity. And let's regularize the extended service hours of family medicine clinics. In Kuaiqing, for example, the 2024 figures show for over 65s, they make up 24% of the local residents, and that makes Kuaiqing the third oldest district of Hong Kong. There are 12,000 people in Hong Kong. In some housing estates in Kuaiqing, we have no doctor's clinic in those estates. That problem is fairly common. It's not just about Onyam Estate in Kuaiqing or Chengshan Estate in Chunwan. So given that, let's bear in mind the demand for medical services and have district-based services. For housing estates without doctors, let's have evening clinics. So we need services from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. and we also need special evening clinics, overnight clinics for that matter. So going all the way past midnight when you provide services. And we also propose a chronic disease co-care platform. Lung cancer is Hong Kong's top killer. In 2023, more than 3,880 people succumbed to lung cancer. That's 26% of all victims of cancer. So we support this collaboration with local universities to adopt AI in cancer screening. This can fuse technology and public health. Now, to incentivize the public to get screened, the government should provide financial incentives for those who go through screening. So let's do rebates to boost participation. And based on how the screening goes, let's offer more places for screening. We also propose industry-specific screening programs for at-risk occupations. District councils and the 3 district committees, as well as care teams, those people can help with the publicity efforts. So that will pay off over the long term if we put in the publicity and education now. Now we should also improve those subsidy schemes so that people who go through the screening can access treatment. Now for lung diseases and osteoporosis, those should be regular screening items and we need follow-up treatment. Those measures are about putting people's health first. We make healthcare more accessible and we drive innovative technology. The government should keep up with the deepening of reform. Let's improve our institutional designs. Let's improve healthcare so that we create a new chapter for healthcare. Finally, I thank the chief executive and the governing team for the foresight and commitment demonstrated in the PA. That's because the PA responds to people's demands and also brings new hope to people. The FTU will team up with the government. We will bring everyone together. We will create a more caring community. Now, in the interest of time, young people and housing, as well as labor issues, as well as social welfare issues, will be something I will follow up on other occasions. Thank you. I so submit. Ms. Lillian Kwok. Thank you, Madam Deputy. I'll focus on mental health and education. First, I thank the government for adopting my ideas about mental health. There's a pledge about a tiered, a stepped model for mental health. There will be different positioning and division of labor for different stakeholders. Now, the 3-tier mental health emergency response model will cover primary 4 to 6 students. There are people with depression and anxiety in Hong Kong. The waiting time is long. Resources go to serious cases. Psychiatrists and clinical psychologists help those people in need. We don't have enough resources for minor and medium cases. There are 3 district health centers with this Healthy Mind program. In the future, we will have 6 instead of 3. People with training in psychology and counseling will provide services. We need prevention and identifying cases. Now, for this 2-level 3-tier system, so we should stick to this 3-tier model in revamping our mental health services. This should be linked up with primary health care, schools, and communities so that people get the right support at the right time. Tier 1 is low intensity intervention. This means publicity, education, sleep management, and help at school. Tier 2, management at the school level. When needed, the cases should be escalated to professionals. And Tier 3, you have high intensity professional support. This is for medium to serious, high risk cases. You have cross disciplinary teams intervene here, and when needed, you use drugs. We need emergency access for urgent cases. For rehabilitation, there should be follow-up for cases that improve in condition. Those can be brought down to Tier 1 or Tier 2. This cross-disciplinary approach with quantifiable indicators combined with continuous monitoring can help us keep track of cases, and then we can decide the intensity of intervention. We can learn from other places in this tiered model in the UK and in Australia as well as in Canada. They have their respective stepped models and tiered approaches. Their approaches have taken pressure off the public healthcare system. And we can also provide support for people with addiction, with alcohol, tobacco, and internet. In California, for example, in terms of addiction treatment, there's intervention for non-violent people with addiction issues. Once you fix the addiction, we have fewer conflicts in society, and that also saves judicial resources. Now I turn to education. Now, many measures have been enhanced. The government has adopted our ideas as well. We have studied the task force on studying Hong Kong, hostels in the city scheme, and 6 UGC-funded universities can admit more non-local students. Now, I want to turn to St. Francis University, a university of applied sciences. Let's allow them to admit more non-local students. I also thank the government for adopting my suggestion of promoting DSE internationally. DSE is something of where we enjoy a sterling reputation because you can take the exam in Chinese, and this also has the attention of overseas Chinese. Language is how we communicate culture. Our country is now rich and prosperous. Our country's businesses are going overseas. Our compatriots travel overseas. I promoted Putonghua competitions in Indonesia and Thailand. More than 1,000 people took part in each competition. And then we also got interviews and seminars with these overseas Chinese. They take a keen interest. So there's a keen demand for Putonghua or Chinese language education. Hong Kong has many years of experience of teaching non-ethnic Chinese students. Universities also have such courses, so we should help promote Chinese language education overseas. And we can help those Chinese businesses that have gone overseas recruit people by promoting Chinese language education overseas. So all that will be contributing to our overall efforts, and also thank the government for adopting my idea of enhancing INT education in primary schools. There's a AI literacy framework. That's my idea, and this will be pursued by the government. With that, we will be able to give young people skills in this AI era. On vocational education, I thank the government again for adopting my idea of micro-credentials, and this can fit in with our qualifications framework. So let's explore adopting this approach in secondary schools too. Now, there are capable students with special educational needs. Vocational education can give them skills as an extra option on top of HKDSC. They will become talent, and we can also try things out like what we do at Tung Chi Ying School, a school for social development. And also we should rationalize the resources that go into support for people with autism spectrum disorder. I invite the government to learn from our country's policy. So for special schools, we should give their resources based on the number of students. We provide the safety net. We don't put a cap on this. And let's also revisit our integrated education policy. Education is a long-term undertaking. The curriculum makes a huge difference. A good curriculum can help a teacher do their job. This is the last motion of thanks debate on the policy addresses for the current term government, the current term legislature. I thank the government for taking on board so many of my ideas, and my ideas have been incorporated into policy addresses. And there's a measure on civil service. We will have a more vigorous civil service appraisal system. I really want to see this measure implemented not just to the letter but also in terms of the spirit. I hope the government can keep up with the effort. Let's execute the good policies to improve people's livelihood. I support the motion. Thank you.
Mr. Tony Choi. Thank you, Deputy President. Apart from enhancing governance and enhancing speed and efficiency in development, I have been concerned about the housing policies in Hong Kong. I'm also concerned about problems with old buildings in Hong Kong. With the adjusted public-private housing split, we see a shortened waiting time for public housing. I've urged the government time and again to be careful about putting in resources on subsidized sale flats. The government should not overlook how to help government achieve home ownership and provide them with opportunities for upward mobility. We should not overlook the mentality of young people to lie flat. We should not let young people rely on government. This year's PA proposes measures to enrich the housing ladder. I support these initiatives. The government proposes adjusting the green form and white form ratio and relaxing the alienation restrictions for subsidized housing. For those who have never enjoyed public housing benefits, they might feel unfair. So we need to strike a balance. Moving forward, the government should review the housing policies that have been in use for years. For example, I've been calling for looking at the per capita floor area and housing expenditure for family households. We want people to live in bigger flats, more spacious and more comfortable housing units. On tackling old and dilapidated buildings, I'm glad that the government has taken on board my suggestions to make use of land in new development area to promote urban renewal. This includes relaxing the GFA exemption arrangement, allowing plot ratio that is underutilized to be transferred to other districts. For 7 districts with the pressing need for urban renewal, there will be adjustment in terms of the plot ratio and arrangement for private developers. The government needs to streamline the relevant approval processes, including procedures that have to do with land premium. This year, the government proposes setting up a working group on aging society strategies. It will be led by the Deputy Chief Secretary. There will be policies to be formulated covering elderly care, healthcare, housing, culture, and gerund technology. The government will promote silver economy, and the government is moving towards the right direction, and these measures deserve our recognition. Also, I'm glad that this year's PA has a dedicated chapter on building management. It proposes stepping up the joint building management scheme. It will make use of Buildings Management Ordinance to deal with water seepage issues as well as fire safety issues at all buildings. There is also mention about how to support elderly people aging in place and how we can support carers of elderly people. There will be training for frontline property management practitioners in order to provide better support for carers, for aging buildings as well as aging population problems. Property management companies can play a more important role. I hope the government can make good use of them. It should give enough importance to them to enhance training and support for them. I so submit I speak in support of the motion of thanks. Dr. Johnny Ng, Deputy President. This year's policy address focuses on improving people's lives. There's a dedicated chapter on building a caring and inclusive society. It is the longest chapter of this year's PA. It covers 9 areas that have to do with people's lives. Increasing housing supply and enriching housing ladder is one of the areas. On public-private housing split and supply, I see that the CE is attaching a lot of importance to people's needs. This current term government strives to address housing issues. It keeps producing housing and it tries to tackle the problem of SDUs. One of my election manifestos was to address the problem of SDUs to improve the living environment of the grassroots so that children of the grassroots can have a better growing environment. I'm glad that these measures are yielding results. I see that people's housing issues will be addressed. On enhancing education and nurturing talent, the PA proposes a number of measures to attract young talents. For the 8 UGC-funded universities, the enrollment cap for non-local students will be increased from 40 to 50%. There will be a task force on study in Hong Kong, and there will be a study in Hong Kong brand promotion publicity campaign. Recently, the 5 universities that ranked among the top 100 in the world is included in the chart of a recent ranking. And their rankings have climbed. And so Hong Kong is the city with the biggest number of top 100 universities. It shows that the government has yielded results in terms of promoting our education development. We have advantages under one country, two systems. In the third plenary session, our country mentions that Hong Kong should build itself into an international hub for high-caliber talent. We have had talent exchanges with Macau and the mainland. We should step up collaboration with the Education Ministry. There should be more exchanges among talents between Hong Kong and the mainland. We can work with the higher education institutes in Beijing to cultivate talent and to promote scientific researches, to cultivate INT talents. We can support young people from Hong Kong to develop their career on the mainland. Moving forward, I hope the government will speed up the development of the Northern Metropolis University town, promote the study in Hong Kong brand, and promote our universities of applied sciences to build ourselves into an international education hub so that we can stand out from the international competition. On tackling aging population problem, I support the idea of setting up a working group on aging society strategies. The government will promote silver economy. I hope the government will also promote germ technology. It should do more in this area. For example, it should step up measures to promote germ tech at the community level to enhance elderly people's digital literacy and to improve their lives. Mr. John Lee, since taking office, has been promoting reform and the result-oriented culture to improve socio-economic development. This PA's theme is deepening reforms for our people, leveraging our strengths for a brighter future. I believe this is not simply a slogan. Instead, this is a policy objective that we can meet. I so submit. Thank you. Mr. Peter Xu. Thank you, Deputy President. This year's policy address touches on the housing problems in Hong Kong. The government has worked hard to address the waiting time for public housing. we see that the waiting time has been shortened significantly. I was a member of the Housing Authority, but I'm no longer a member of the authority, but I still support the government's measures. I hope the government will continue with this effort. On talent admission, I thank the Secretary for Labor and Welfare. We're facing an aging population problem and a low birth rate, so we need to work on boosting manpower. We have some 200,000 incoming talents in Hong Kong. They are an important part to boost our economic growth. We're seeing a slight increase of unemployment rate recently. The Liberal Party supports the idea of ensuring jobs for the locals first. However, we should not slack on boosting our economic growth. I support measures that help address the unemployment rate, but we cannot adopt a broad brush approach. Some 30 years ago, we saw great economic development in Japan, but it's not performing so well in recent years because of aging population. It resists importing foreign workers. For those who are willing to import labor, they are doing better in their economy. So I hope the government will continue to work on this area. The chief executive delivered a great policy address. I hope the government will continue to work hard for our people. Thank you. Mr. Andrew Lam. The policy address touches a lot on education, technology, and talent. It is one of the priorities of the current term government. I'm happy to see that the Committee on the Development of Education, Technology, and Talent is promoting work in this regard. It has achieved great results. The government has exceeded its target. In the World Talent Competitiveness Report and ranking, the government is ranked 4th among the world. Apart from looking at the figures, we need a clear long-term population policy. Talent and education needs to go hand in hand. Education is not just to nurture our future generation. It also helps us tackle challenge on manpower. Without a blueprint, we won't have a strategy on enhancing education and bringing in capital and talent. With an aging population, a low birth rate, and an outflow of labor, we're facing challenges. It is expected that by 2046, those aged 65 or above will account for 36% of the total population. The labor participation force will drop from 55% to 52%. We have to review the shortcomings of the existing policies. There are people who are willing to serve the community. Many people from the silver-haired group, they would like to contribute to our society. They would like to work as volunteers to help take care of children, for example. To make use of our silver-haired group, we should not only focus on how to unleash the labor force and productivity. Instead, we have to learn from their wisdom and life experiences. We have to let them contribute to our community. We can give them incentives such as consumption vouchers so that they don't have to spend on transportation in order to work as volunteers. Apart from the silver-haired group, there is another group in the community who does not want to work. After COVID, because of a change in the global economic landscape, we're seeing a rise in unemployment rate. According to statistics, in 2024, we saw a drop of some 16,000 cases. But compared to 2019, there were only 12,000 cases. So we're seeing an increase of some 30% in terms of unemployment. 70% of people are CSSA recipients. There are people who are willing to take part in the labor force, but there are also people who do not wish to work for those who manage to leave the CSSA scheme that accounts to less than 3%. According to statistics from June this year, there are about 50,000 vacant jobs, and this is not including self-employed positions. The government needs a big data analytic platform to consolidate information from job seekers and employers. There needs to be a better matching. Through big data analytics, we can have better matching to have a better idea of what kind of jobs are available on the market to better formulate a manpower policy.
AI will come in handy. We have seen in the past few years the government trying to take forward very smart government platforms. For example, the Social Welfare Department has been taking forward the data platform on carers. The databases of Social Welfare Department, Hospital Authority, and Housing Authority are linked. The policy address mentioned the databases of more government departments and public bodies will be linked to have a database on carers. The Housing Bureau launched 2 years ago a transitional housing central application platform, and applicants need only to input basic information to find out about the latest situation of their application, and the choices of applicants can be automatically referred to operators for follow-up. These are key milestones of government departments taking forward cross-departmental data connectivity. We can make use of technology better by eliminating the unnecessary administrative procedures. For example, the Social Welfare Department can extend the data platform to other departments so that when they make other applications with other departments, they do not need to fill in the same details again. It will help us do better in targeted poverty alleviation as well. It has been 10 years since the promulgation of the long-term housing strategy. We have seen significant changes. It is now time to have a comprehensive review of the strategy. We need to understand, for example, we now have households moving across the boundaries. We have the government's target being constructing 420,000 units in the next 10 years. And the public housing to HOS flats mix has been adjusted from 7:3 and 6:4. The green form and white form ratio has also been adjusted. So we do see an enriched housing ladder. I do appreciate the housing policy, but we need to make sure there is proper implementation. We also need to tell people about what our vision is so that there is less uncertainty for the people. The medium size of houses in Hong Kong is just 172 square feet. It is much less than neighboring regions. It is very hard to encourage people to bear children as a result. This is therefore not just a housing problem, but a demographics problem. For housing strategies in future, we need to not only look at the quantity of units available, but also the sizes of housing units. The development of Northern Metropolis can improve the situation, but then it's just 215 to 237 square feet as projected. It is still quite small. We need to improve the living area. That would mean we have to have more housing solutions, and we need to consider all three aspects: land, housing, and development in order to increase land supply for that to happen. I so submit speaking in support of the motion. Mr. Chow Siu-chung, we have wide coverage on livelihood matters in the policy address. There is, in particular, a lot of measures. There are a lot of measures on labor support and protection. I thank the government for keeping in view the situation of grassroots workers. I would like to focus my speech on labor. The government's stance to prioritize local employment is very clear, and I see that some minor adjustments are made to the enhanced labor supply scheme for the two occupations of waiters and junior cooks. The recruitment period has been lengthened. There's also a tighter manning ratio requirement. The employers also have to take part in on-site job fairs. Before, employers, when conducting local recruitment, they probably have their sights set on hiring imported workers, so they just superficially try to hire locals, but they make excuses, and then in the end they won't be hiring those local workers. I'm glad that there are specific measures in the policy address to change this, to prioritize local employment. I hope that the government, upon implementation of such arrangements for a while, will extend the arrangements to other occupations. The new measures of the government will help prevent abuse, but what's important is the government's continuous surveillance. Many workers told me that employers, after importing workers, will force those employees who have higher pay to quit, for example, by giving them an unreasonable workload, and then the work, once they've quit, will be given to imported labor. We also have some paying a relatively higher pay to engage imported workers of lower qualifications so as to save costs. These are serious irregularities, but the harshest punishment handed out by the Labor Department is just a suspension of the company from taking part in such arrangements for 2 years. This is not enough. We should have the employers importing workers constantly provide information on the manning ratio of local workers and imported workers. If there's a significant decrease in the ratio, the government should intervene early on. For the importation of labor, I think there should be a dynamic assessment mechanism so that at regular intervals, such as every 3 months, there will be a review and adjustments can be made if necessary. For example, in the F&B sector, the unemployment rate reached 6.8%. We have a large number of local workers that have lost their jobs that have to be taken care of. But then we still have the 30,000 odd imported workers that have already received approval to come to Hong Kong. We also have 10,000 odd cases that are waiting approval. So that can exacerbate the situation. Perhaps we should suspend the importation of labor until the situation improves. Next, to safeguard rights of local workers, the government said in the policy address that they will combat illegal workers. Recently, we can see illegal workers being found in different occupations, so it has seriously affected prospects of different sectors' workers, local workers. I am glad that the government is determined to combat the problem, and I hope that we can have the government promulgating a comprehensive strategy to combat illegal workers and to prevent illegal workers from working in Hong Kong in the first place. I also appreciate the government providing for a work injury compensation mechanism for digital platform workers. Digital platform workers is a new concept that only arose in the last few years. I appreciate the government legislating for the rights of digital platform workers, but we need to clearly define the relationships between digital platform workers and companies. We also need a clear definition for digital platform workers. Apart from having a work injury compensation mechanism, we should also provide retirement benefits and appropriate pay for digital platform workers. The policy address also mentioned there will be enhancements made to the employment allowance scheme. The scheme aims to unleash potential labor. So we can see then it said that for 3 years 6,000 would benefit, and now we already have 27,000 people being able to find jobs through this scheme. A review will be done next year, but even without the review, I can tell the scheme is very effective, with many middle-aged and elderly persons taking part in the scheme. It seems to echo what I said earlier. With appropriate incentives, a lot of people who have left the labor force will rejoin the labor force, and a quarter of the cases are actually of persons aged 60 or above. This scheme's findings are very beneficial for our review on how to release silver productivity. We can think about, for example, providing more incentives and employment support. In this year's policy address, the government talked about the establishment of a working group on aging society strategies that will be led by the Chief Secretary for Administration. I hope that the working group can take a macro perspective in promoting silver employment. Apart from existing employment support programs, we should have more targeted measures to tackle the pain points faced by those individuals in employment. For example, job-place discrimination. How can we prevent actual age discrimination in workplaces, and how we can encourage employers to take forward elderly-friendly employment practices? This year's policy address focuses on economic development and addressing livelihood issues. I support the measures announced in the policy address. However, I am disappointed that there's no proper support for workers on MPF. I hope that in future we can improve this aspect of things for workers. I so submit. Mr. Benson, look, Deputy President, and I will make use of the time left for my time slot to talk about youth development. It may seem that there's not much content in the policy address on youth development, but if we look closely on the progress of KPIs, many of the measures have achieved progress in accordance with the performance indicators. So I really appreciate that. I have been doing youth work for many years, and I note that we have the Home Affairs and Youth Affairs Bureau promulgating the Youth Development Blueprint before to help address different youth issues. The SAR government has announced 160 measures under the blueprint, including the expansion of the MSSY and to have more youth hostels, etc. According to the policy address, it says that the 2 youth hostels will provide 3,700 hostel places. It is a 40-fold the figure when they first proposed the idea of having youth hostels. I also want to talk about the youth posts in Kai-Tak. The BPA thinks that with the conversion of community isolation facility to a youth post, this approach is very much appreciated. We hope that in the next 5 years in the operational period, there will be 100 odd cultural, creative, and sports activities held for youth to facilitate exchanges among local, mainland, and overseas youth. We also hope that the youth post can be used to direct youth passengers to the youth cruise terminal and create synergy between cruise terminal and the Kai-Tak Sports Park.
Now I turn to the Strive and Rise program. This program was introduced by the current term government. It's a breakthrough in overcoming intergenerational poverty. I have been a mentor under that scheme myself. So for this scheme, I say we should regularize the scheme. Let's bring this together with the Youth Link. And also, by doing this, we can nurture more patriotic young people. I hope this youth blueprint can be executed properly. This is no time to rest on our laurels. Let's also pay attention to what young people need. Let's bring together our young people so that they contribute to the economy. Young people are our future, as President Xi Jinping said on the 1st of July in 2022. When young people thrive, our country thrives. When our young people have hope, then there's promise for our country. So let's mobilize our young people. Let's help our young people contribute to the community. I so submit and support the motion of thanks. Mr. Chen Pui-lang. Thank you, President. I will discuss healthcare and the aging population. Healthcare has always been top of mind for me, and I have been following the issue of mental health for a long time. District health centers should be used to screen people and promote mental health. At 3 DHCs, there would be a pilot scheme. Community organizations have been helping people with mental health screening. I welcome this year's PA's measure to have 6 such centers instead of just 3. There will be professionals with training in psychology and counseling to provide the services. There are also sweeping reforms in healthcare. There's a package of measures addressing the tensions within the system, such as the fees and charges reform for public hospitals to curb abuse, and we're also shifting from treatment to prevention. This package of measures will take a long time to pay off, so I hope we can keep digging deeper into these measures, and we should also focus on cancer prevention. After all, cancer is the top killer in Hong Kong. User pays, those with more should pay more, so we should be leveraging medical insurance. I have been calling for greater transparency in private healthcare through legislation so that private healthcare can take pressure off public healthcare and we can offer more options to the people with the means. The voluntary health insurance scheme has been launched for 6 years. The time has come for an interim review. Let's enhance the VHIS to get more people to take out such policies, and that will take financial pressure off people when they seek healthcare. In the long term, this can take pressure off the public healthcare system. So we should be expanding the major disease risk pool. Let's pursue a feasibility study on this. Let's consult widely so that we can come up with a system that protects people, a system that is also sustainable. This can take pressure off public health care, and also encourage people to plan ahead of time and act accordingly so that they don't go poor because of getting sick. The PA also proposes a chronic disease co-care platform and a community drug formulary, as well as an initiative about community pharmacies. I say we should allow the use of elderly healthcare vouchers in community pharmacies. We can adopt the model of the chronic disease co-care scheme. Let's give access to drugs to seniors at affordable prices so that even seniors start to adopt this mindset focused on prevention rather than treatment. Now, on aging for the middle class, I've been calling for government leadership on a blueprint for aging for the middle class. Let's bring together the public and private sectors. We should adopt gerontechnology. We should improve people's mental health. We should be linking up medical resources, accredited resources, and also protect people's rights. Let's offer greater support for aging for the middle class. The PA this year proposes a working group on aging population strategies, and there will also be efforts to spur cross-boundary aging products. I support this. The working group on aging population strategies will come up with strategies with foresight. In GPA cities, there are communities for retirees. So we can provide support for these seniors. These retirees communities can offer health management, health care, and entertainment for retirees. That will ensure quality of life for retirees from Hong Kong. So for retirees with means, we should encourage these retirees to those retirees communities in the mainland cities of the GBA so that we can offer quality options that are also a bargain for retirees. And we should also explore accreditation of standards for those retirees communities. And for insurers that are involved in running these retirees communities in the mainland cities of the GBA, now we should allow Hong Kong people who have taken out insurance for a number of years to stay in those retirement communities. Let's also consider tax concessions to encourage the middle class to seek aging in the mainland. I so submit I support the motion of thanks. Mr. Michael Lee. For this session, I want to discuss housing, which is top of mind for many people. The policy address stresses once again that ensuring housing security is a priority in policy making. The current term government has fast-tracked the building of public housing. There's light public housing, there's a stronger effort to crack down on public housing tenancy abuse. With more and more public housing, the government will have what it takes to help the grassroots own their homes. We can see housing remains a priority of the government. We thank the government for adopting the Liberal Party's ideas by improving housing for people. The government has shortened the composite waiting time for public housing, and then there's light public housing, and also there will be basic housing units. All those mean better homes for people. Now we have completed 850,000 public housing units. The government deserves credit for improving people's housing conditions. Now we will see improvement in the living conditions for SDU residents. In the next few years, we will see 189,000 public housing units, up 80% from the number at the time the current term government started. The BHU regime will kick in soon. Some subdivided units will qualify as basic housing units. So that will be enough housing units to meet the housing needs of SDE residents. That would mean less demand for public housing. So we would have turned things around for the housing conundrum, and there will be new standards for housing, and there will be good housing units for people. But then we have a falling birth rate, we have an aging population. Because of the low income limit on PRH tenants, people work for fewer hours, or they simply resort to casual labor, or they lie flat to make less money so that they stay within the limit, and then we end up with a shortage of workers. So that's holding our economy back. There's greater dependency, and indeed growing dependency, on public rental housing, and that adds to the strain on public finances. So even though we do so well in building public housing, we struggle to meet the need for public housing. Home ownership is only at 51%, and that's way behind other places such as the mainland, Taiwan, and Singapore. In those places, home ownership is more like 90%. The government has to meet the basic housing needs of people. The Liberal Party believes promoting home ownership should be our priority in housing. You need a good home before you can devote your attention to work. With home ownership, there will be social stability, people will seek upward mobility, and that will forge social cohesion. So, for the PA this year, there is public housing, and there are also measures on encouraging upward mobility. For HOS flats, the supply will increase by roughly 50% from the level back in 2022. There will be help for the sandwich class to own a home. The housing split for white form and green form will also go from 60-40 to 50-50, and there will be faster turnover of public rental housing units. We suggest that we should adjust the housing split based on future economic conditions. The government also pledged to build more bigger flats for green form, GSH, and WS and white form flats, and this will meet the housing aspirations of many people. Many people said that they have a very slim chance of getting the chance to buy an HOS flat, even though they qualify, especially for young people. So let's adopt groundbreaking measures. So let's restrict the drawing of lots to just once in a lifetime. That will improve people's chances of getting a flat. Or we can have an inverse relationship between income and the chance of buying a flat. The more you make, the less likely you get a flat. And we can also adopt the idea of starter homes. And that means we can impose alienation restrictions on HOS flats so that people actually occupy the HOS flat they make. And we should also consider allowing people to resell their HOS flat based on the cost and inflation. This can speed up the turnover of HOS flats, and that's how the housing ladder should work. We let people move up the housing ladder one step at a time, and this can encourage PRH tenants to move up the social ladder. Young people are our future. They are the biggest victim with housing shortage. They are well-educated PRH applicants, and their share is growing. So we're losing many well-educated people because they want to stay within the asset limit and income limit for PRH flat. We don't want housing to hold back people, and the PA has measures on this. Now, without these restrictions on reselling for people who do get HOS flats or PRH flats, those people will be more comfortable with working harder to get ahead. we have many external challenges. Still, I remain confident. This is a good time to reform our housing system. As the Secretary for Housing said, work on housing is always ongoing. We can always work to provide better and bigger homes. So I support the government in keeping up its work. Housing should be more than just about poverty alleviation. There should be a ladder, a way for people to own their homes. Only then we can break new ground with this economic transition and an aging population. And only then can we provide greater impetus for growth and enhance people's sense of well-being and gain. I so submit I support the motion of thanks.
Dr. Starry LEE. President, Mr. John Lee, the Chief Executive, on the 17th of September delivered this year's policy address, and it has got very good comments on the PA. I'm going to express my views on the following areas. Education is one of the focus. It covers patriotic and values education, and that's one important measure for the current term government. Patriotic education falls under Chapter 2 of this year's PA. It shows that the Chief Executive as well as the entire executive authority places importance to patriotic education. For commemorating the 80th anniversary of the victory in the War of Resistance, there is a rapid polishing of the historic relics that commemorate the War of Resistance. This year, a lot of these wartime relics are set up, and this is very efficient. In the policy address, it is mentioned that these historic relics should be incorporated into our educational itineraries and activities. These are going to have long-term impact on our education. We have to make patriotic education as part of our daily lives. For example, the government is going to have a new curriculum on values education. There will be basic law ambassadors at schools, and it will revamp the curriculum for Chinese history as well as history subjects. All these can help nurture students' sense of nationhood and help foster their sense of national identity. We need to have closer liaison with patriotic groups, and at the community level we should promote patriotic education. All these measures deserve our support. On education, the quality of teachers are crucial to the success of our education system. The government proposes setting up this teacher registration mechanism, and it has introduced this practicing certificate system. This is to ensure that all teachers are qualified to educate our students, and this is to ensure the quality of teaching. There will be a series of training and exchange programs to enhance the quality of our teachers. Again, these measures deserve our support. We're moving into a digital era. Our education has to focus on digital economy and technological advancement. The Quality Education Fund will reserve $2 billion to support the enhancement of digital literacy of primary and secondary school students. There will be an AI education blueprint to be released next year. This is to nurture students' ability to innovate and make use of technology. So this is in line with the overall economic development. I hope that the Education Bureau, as it implements and takes forward all these initiatives, it will ensure that our teachers can catch up with the trend of AI, and that our students will have their digital literacy enhanced. We have to make use of our higher education resources to build ourselves into an international education hub. There will be the Committee on Development of the Northern Metropolis, as well as the Working Group on Planning and Construction of the University Town. All these moves and efforts will help enhance the quality of our education. It will also help us build ourselves into an education hub. This year's PA proposes the setting up of a task force on study in Hong Kong. Again, these measures will help our university brands be promoted to the international world. Moving forward, we see that the government is determined to put education, technology, and talent as one of its strategies. We have to keep updating our plans for education. We're seeing an increasing number of non-local students in Hong Kong. The government should think about broadening the sources of students. We need different initiatives in order to achieve that. I'm concerned about the increasing number of non-local students. It's overcrowding our campuses. I hope there are enough resources and support measures to help schools expand. 5 hectares of land at the university town may not be able to satisfy the needs of the 8 UGC-funded universities. Well, I thank the government for putting forward policies to help universities build student hostels. Over the past 2 years, we have boosted the number of non-local students in Hong Kong. We need to ensure reasonable allocation of resources and support measures so that both local and non-local students in Hong Kong can experience high-quality education here. Of course, that would include a good experience on campuses. Apart from building Hong Kong into an education hub and a high-caliber talent hub, we need to ensure integrated development of education, technology, and talent. And one of the highlights is to promote Hong Kong as an international hub for high-caliber talent. We need to ensure innovation in industrial development. The government has done a lot of work in this regard. A lot of the tech projects have the involvement of higher education institutes in Hong Kong. There are voices in our society that our universities ace at basic researches, but then we lack the capacities in INT. How much do our universities contribute to our GDP? I hope the government will put forward more policies to make better use of our universities. Apart from attracting overseas students, how else can they contribute? I'll use Tsinghua University as an example. Apart from government funding of about $30 billion, which accounts for only 12% of their total funding, a lot of the other funding comes from their R&D projects initiated for enterprises. This can help boost finances for universities. Not just mainland universities, Stanford, MIT in the US, they are research-oriented universities, and the source of their finance come from major enterprises. The government is very generous in terms of devoting resources into our higher education institutes, and we have yielded results because of that. But the government is facing pressure in public finances. Apart from attracting non-local students, a more important mission for us is to help universities create economic growth. According to the findings of our initial study, for both mainland universities and overseas universities, they work with industries. And that's how they get their funding. A lot of their funding comes from private enterprises. If we can have a more comprehensive set of support measures, it will fully leverage the roles of our universities. Now, I'd like to turn to talent. Under the guidance of Professor Sun Dong, we have yielded significant results under various talent admission schemes. The DAB looks into building ourselves into a talent hub. I am involved in that as well. We have many duty visits to the mainland, and I teach some of the courses, master degree courses in universities. According to statistics, we've got satisfactory results in terms of the visa renewal rate under talent admission schemes. However, we have to bear in mind the mission given by our country. We have to build ourselves into an international hub for high caliber talent. The key words here are international and high caliber talent. How can we yield better results? I think we have to continue to work with the Greater Bay Area. We have to work with tech companies as well as higher education institutes. We have to look for top-notch talents to come to Hong Kong to contribute to the development of our country. In order to attract these talents, we need support measures. For the Top Talent Pass scheme, for Category A talents, I believe they are talents that are most needed for high value added industries in Hong Kong. To attract talents, we need more measures. Paragraph 145 of the policy address mentions that spaces will be reserved for international schools. We have talked to chambers of businesses and they have high demand for international schools. So in order to build an international hub for high caliber talent, we need international schools. So the government will have to keep up with its effort in this regard. As a GC member, I understand that these talent schemes have been very successful. We also have labor importation schemes. However, we must admit that because of these talent admission schemes, there have been impacts and pressure on local employment. There are voices that the government should put forward policies to ensure local jobs are given to the locals first. The DAB asked the government to put forward measures to safeguard job opportunities for local workers, and we have to have effective measures to combat illegal workers. In terms of safeguarding employment for local workers, I understand the government has done a lot, but it should step up publicity. If you are looking for a job and the job falls under the job types under the Enhanced Labor Importation Scheme, I hope the Labor Department can really offer a matching service, because we want to ensure jobs are given to the locals first, and that those who are looking for jobs will secure one. On combating illegal workers, there needs to be continuous inspections. We need a reporting mechanism and heavy penalties to eliminate illegal workers in Hong Kong. Now I'd like to turn to the housing letter. I support the housing measures in this year's PA. I've talked to the secretary and I agree that we need to boost the supply of HOS units. This current term government has done a lot of work. For example, we have the light public housing units, we have more public housing supply. The government has yielded results in terms of supplying public housing for the grassroots. However, we have to enhance the sense of belonging and sense of well-being of our young people. And in order to do that, we have to promote home ownership among young people. In the long run, if we can take care of the needs of the grassroots, then we should, for the next step, increase the supply of HOS units so as to take care of the needs of young people and the sandwich class as well. We don't want unaffordable housing prices in Hong Kong. I'm confident that we will be able to achieve our targets. We are an international hub for high caliber talent. In the long run, we'll be able to attract a lot of talents to Hong Kong. Hong Kong itself is a great brand, and Hong Kong is very appealing to mainland talents. While we are seeing fluctuations in terms of housing prices, in the long run it will be kept at a stable level, I believe. We want young people to be able to purchase their own homes. Now we're offering opportunities for young people to take part in balloting for public housing. If we can come up with a waiting list for public housing, then we can perhaps offer more support to young people who've been marginalized. Now, many people are very disappointed that we are not seeing a revival of the tenants purchase scheme. While we want to have this scheme revived, there are many issues to be resolved. I hope the government will look into this. In the long run, we have to boost the home ownership rate. I hope the government will continue to promote this kind of measures. Well, I'd like to talk about elderly care as well as health care as well, but I don't have enough time. I hope that there will be a coordinated mechanism among the GBA. I hope the working group on aging society strategies will come up with ways to deal with this. Thank you.
Dr. Louis Long, President. Now, one of the initiatives in the policy address is to enrich the housing ladder. I support these ideas, save for one of these initiatives. Last year, in the motion debate on further enriching the housing ladder, I urge the government to tighten the requirement on the transfer or reassignment of subsidized sale flats. I think that this should be completely separate from the private housing market. The purpose of subsidized sale flats is to allow owners to accumulate wealth so that they can climb up the housing ladder and move on to the private market. As for publicly funded, subsidized housing, they should remain in the HOS secondary market, not allowing the owners to pay for the premium and move on to the private market. Well, this can help more people who are eligible for home ownership and yet who cannot afford a flat in the private market. We don't want to affect existing HOS owners. Now, I urge the government to impose restrictions on new HOS flats or SSF flats, and that they should not be allowed to be resold in public markets. However, the government has refused to impose any restriction. Starting from the next round of GSH and HOS, there will be a further relaxation of assignment from a period of assignment from 15 years to 10 years. According to the government, by introducing this relaxation measure, it can help people move up the housing ladder. Now, I really beg to differ. I don't see the correlations. Now, there is a clear definition for each rung of the housing ladder. For subsidized housing, we are spending public money, and we need to make sure that there is fair and even allocation of resources to make sure it's money well spent. And through the assignment restriction, the government should explain this intention. It's not for raffle. Allowing HOS and GSH flats to be sold in the market and relaxing the restriction period amount to waste of public money. I really cannot support that. Now, despite what I said about this initiative, I support other measures to enrich the housing ladder. I support the motion of thanks. Mr. Dominic Lee. Now, in this year's policy address, the Chief Executive has proposed a number of measures to stimulate the economy and improve people's livelihood. There will also be measures to expedite the development. My party is also happy to learn about other measures such as promoting aerospace, economy, fertility, as well as AI development. I'm happy to be able to take part in this debate, that I'm going to vote yes for the motion of thanks. Under the leadership of principal officials and having read the policy address this year, I feel that in terms of different areas, tourism, economic development, etc., we see a very positive trend, and we are fully confident in the economic outlook in Hong Kong. However, in the past, through the mechanism of the job market, members of the public and workers in general are able to get the dividend of economic success. Now, I'm gravely concerned. I am worried that this is no longer the case. Well, the current unemployment rate is on the high side, according to the history in Hong Kong, and according to the government, the latest unemployment rate stands at 3.7% between June and August this year. Now, comparing that to those in other places, you may say that the unemployment rate is not really high. It should not stir any panic among us, but it's still on the high side comparing to the long-standing low unemployment rate we have enjoyed before the pandemic. Now, there have been some recent discussions about the high unemployment rate. The first reason is because of the poor economic outlook and people spending northwards, and that the retail and F&B sectors are affected. And according to the labor sector, importing labor also impacts on local jobs, and we're not according priority to local workers. Now, I'd like to focus on two other reasons. The first one is education. It's definitely good news that we are taking forward initiatives relating to education. According to this year's policy address, for non-local students, the ratio will be increased to 50%, and we will encourage students to come to Hong Kong to further their studies on a self-financed basis. This can help promote the study in Hong Kong brand. Still, we need to address a number of issues. Say we have 15,000 local students, take 50% of that. That means that's a maximum of 7,500 students. That's only for first-year undergraduates. You haven't taken into account master's degree students and also those coming under the Top Talent Pass scheme. Now, I assume that the majority of these people would like to get an IANG or study in Hong Kong and then get an IANG status or endorsement for them to settle in Hong Kong in the long term. Is that really the policy objective? Do we have enough jobs for them? In fact, I recently talked to some employers. They want to hire workers, and according to them, there are students coming from the mainland to study here. They have the INNG endorsement, and most of them come from middle class background, and that means they'll be going after white-collar jobs in Hong Kong or other professional jobs. And according to Mr. Peter Sheo or Mr. Tommy Cheung, they're not after grassroots jobs. And according to employers, once they post a job ad on websites such as JobsDB, they get not dozens but hundreds of applications, and many of these applicants are applying on the strength of an IANG visa. In fact, I also have this experience in my ward office. Now, I had an interview with a candidate, and then I was about to hire this person. I went outside, and then all of a sudden the door was open, and then my colleague asked me for a chat, and then it was said that the candidate had actually offered or counter offered to get $10,000 for salaries because their intention was to stay in Hong Kong. Now, IANG applicants are not counted in the 3.7% unemployment rate. So I think there is a discrepancy here with what's really happening. Not to mention the top talent pass scheme. This is a worrying sign. And it's something we need to mull over. According to the national policy, if we want to develop Hong Kong into an international education hub, it is entirely all right for these students to stay behind and settle here. But in order to do that, we need to provide them with enough jobs. So the first point is about helping these people settle here. The second point is equally worrying. I'd like Mr. Sun, the Secretary, to give it a thought, and that's artificial intelligence. Well, this is an excellent tool for many. Some may believe that AI is not going to replace human beings in the short term, but this is not true. Well, I don't agree with the former president of U.S. Obama, but I do agree with what he said when he attended the seminar in a university in U.S. Now, he cited an example about the Silicon Valley. A few years ago, it was a seller's market. That means staff had good bargaining power. They are well sought after. But 2 to 3 years on, with the development of AI, coding has become so easy, and they can replace 70 to 60% of the programmers. And we're talking about programmers not coming from the lower class background, but those elites graduating from Yale, Princeton, etc., and they will be replaced by AI as well. Now, I'm going to talk about AI's development in a moment. Now, that's what Obama said about AI, and that will be replaced by AI. What about the CEO of NVIDIA? Mr. Huang said that AI will not entirely replace humans, but those who know or those who can master AI will replace those who are ignorant about AI. But according to my recent observation, AI has become so smart that even if you can master AI, you will be replaced anyway. Say, most people nowadays would use chatbox, ChatGPT to do a writing task or at least check the grammar, etc. But in recent years, there is this technology called MCP automation. It connects to different apps or software such as SAPI or Make.com, etc. Now, let me give you an example. Say, if I want to publish a post on Facebook, I can automatically connect that to ChatGPT to change this post from Chinese to English, and then I can also ask AI to cross post on Twitter and help me with research, and also prepare a script for YouTube video, etc. Everything can be done by the AI. And last week, OpenAI, that's the parent company of ChatGPT, developed something called another AI agent, which is free. This can replace a lot of people with professional skills. Most worrying of all is that in the beginning of this year, ChatGPT rolled out something called the agent mode. So say in the dialog box, you can key in a command. I'll give you some information, including the credit card. I want to buy movie tickets for a film that will at 10 to midnight, 10 p.m. to midnight. It should have a 4-star rating at least, and this can be done. But the service provider of the server will block this command. But the latest development this week is that Anthropic is now using another technology to allow you to key in the command on the browser side. And the next step is to extend it to the computer. That is, everything you can do with click of a mouse on the computer can be done by AI. It's not a matter of how good it is. It's a matter of how soon it will arrive. I say that you can be replaced in a few months or in 6 months.
That's why our labor, welfare, and education policy, can we catch up with this development? That's my point today. Just imagine the unemployment rate is 3.7%. If because of the developments I've mentioned, our unemployment rate has risen to a higher level, we can still have a very good economy. The scary thing is the AI can help companies make profits with fewer employees. If our employment rate has risen to 20 or even 30%, there is a mass unemployment wave in society. What should we do? We can't just ask these unemployed to think of a solution themselves. Now, in overseas countries, there are something called the negative tax. I'm not saying I advocate for this, but we need to think about this. Some countries, for example, Middle Eastern countries, would expand their public infrastructure to absorb these employees. Now we have Dr. Choi Yuk-lin here, Secretary for Education. Many members and many people are saying that to deal with the developments of AI, the solution is to teach students AI. I beg to differ. I think you don't have to teach students how to use AI. In the past, you need to prompt the AI. Now you can skip that process as well. Now, Jensen Wang is right. Almost everybody will tell you that it's vital to tell you that it's vital for your students to learn computing. But it's almost exactly the opposite. So it doesn't make sense to teach students AI because it is not useful. So maybe we should go back to the foundation like value education, emotional values, and communication skills. These are things which cannot be generated by AI. Many Gen Z people in the US are not enrolling in universities, but rather engage in blue-collar jobs. So that may be the new direction in the future. Now my topic today is rather lofty, but actually it is very close to our life. So in terms of education, labor, and welfare policies, I hope the governments would think about how we can deal with this massive change. Thank you. I so submit. Mr. Chomi Cheng. President, in this session, I will focus on the enhanced supplementary labor scheme, support for carers, and also education. Now, the local catering sector has been benefited by this year's policy address. Non-residential households' sewage effluent charge and discharge fee will be lowered. This will lower the cost for some of our businesses. However, the ESLS will also be restricted. The importation of junior cooks and waiters will be tightened. The local employment period will be extended from 4 weeks to 6 weeks. I think we need to speed up the approval process of governmental departments to catch with the 2 weeks extended time. And also, there is an additional condition for the applicants to be the same employer. That would pose inconvenience to large catering groups because some of their employees may belong to subsidiaries of the mother company. It would reduce the flexibility of the scheme for them. So I hope that the government can find a balance under the new requirements so as to alleviate the manpower shortage in my industry. Several days ago, when I was talking to my constituents about the new measures, since I have never applied for importation of labor, I found that during the process of interviewing local candidates for positions, the Labor Department has been working on the basis of median wage. Now, I understand why the Labor Department has to adopt the median wage level as a reference. The Secretary has explained to me the rationale. However, from a management perspective and from a policy perspective, it is ridiculous that besides statutory minimum wage, the wage should be set by taking into account the experience and work skills of the worker. Now, if you hire me as a cleaning worker, I should get lower wage because I'm old and I'm slow. But the Labor Department is mandating employers to offer a wage as a minimum wage level or median wage level. That's counterintuitive because we already have a manpower shortage. This will hurt our competitiveness. So now I will turn to support for carers. I thank the Chief Executive for promising to earmark $500 million in recurrent expenditure per year to enhance support for carers, including gradually extending the rolling out the data platform for carers. And also the Social Welfare Department would arrange its colleagues to reach out to high-risk cases. But I think the government should take an extra step to increase the number of volunteer teams and their number of deployments. Each carer should get at least 1 hour of rest per day so that they can leave their charge for a short period of time and take care of their mental well-being. Now, long-term caring duty is unfortunate for both the carers and their charges. The government must provide help as soon as possible to those in need to prevent disasters from happening. Now, in the supplement of the policy address, the Education Bureau proposed to establish a registration mechanism for teachers, and also it will study amendments to the Education Ordinance to introduce a practicing certificate system to ensure that all teachers in Hong Kong are fit and proper persons. There are worries that this would hurt the employment opportunity of teachers in Hong Kong, but there are also some people who think this is a reasonable move. I am one of them. The existing mechanism is equivalent to permanent employment. Once you get the qualification, you can work until you retire, during which there is no refreshment training nor examination. But the Liberal Party thinks that we need to make reference to other professional certification systems. There are very rare cases where there is a permanent certification system. So we need to require that teachers are given assessments from time to time and ensure that they have knowledge about the nation's developments to ensure that they are abreast with time. Now, there is no mention of the size of secondary school classes. Now, the Liberal Party has suggested a proposal to the government on the size of classes. Now, in 2027, there were 480,000 secondary school students. In 2023, there were only 330,000 people, 100,000 fewer. However, the recurrent expenditure has been increased to $33 billion. So with 100,000 fewer students, an additional $115 billion have been allocated to secondary schools. Now, there are some schools with classes as small as 17 students in one class. But actually, we have a shortage of teachers because many teachers have left Hong Kong. Whether that is true or not, we need to be spending public money efficiently. There are a lot of areas in education which we need to invest in. We shouldn't waste all the money in secondary education. The Secretary for Education has promised that there will be an adjustment in the future. I hope in the future the classes will be enlarged to 35 students. 18 students for 2 classes, that is too small. And it will not help to improve students' learning. So I hope the Secretary of Education will rectify the situation as soon as possible and make sure that the money is well spent. The $15 billion resources should be allocated to more effective use. President, I so submit I support the 2025 policy address. Mr. Wing Kong. Thank you, President. In terms of livelihood, there are a lot of measures in various areas of livelihood. I applaud this term of the government for their efforts and breakthroughs. For example, after-school care and carer support, there are specific measures. Now, many of these measures are just renewal or extension of existing measures, but there are enhancements. We need to applaud these progress. Now, the Flex for Flex scheme for elderly people, support for mental health, and also other funding schemes, it shows the government's care for the underprivileged. The Flex for Flex scheme will alleviate the problem of mismatch of housing for elderly people. It is also a new mindset to unleash the silver economy potential. However, with tight fiscal budgets, many of these measures are just one-off measures, and there is a lack of coordination. In the future, we need a more systematic framework to create synergy. For example, there is the new arrangements for allowing transfer of plot ratio. However, there is not a comprehensive solution to cross-generational poverty. Now, for mental health, we are still focusing on intervention. However, in terms of prevention and support for young people's mental health, it is still insufficient. There are more non-local students' school places, but there is a lack of support in terms of employment and integration. It will cause conflicts in society. It shows that in terms of precision governance, there is room for improvement. Down the road, I hope the government will offer more support to the middle class and also more thought on population structure. The middle class is the pillar of stability of society. They are placed under tax burden and also children's education. If we neglect their need of upward mobility, we will hurt the vibrancy, the vitality of society. A society which is robust, the middle class usually have hopes and aspirations. If there is a lack of coordination in terms of population policy, birth policy, aging, elderly policy, and other policies will be out of touch. Now, faced with immense challenges in the world, we need to move ahead. We are now in the critical phase of reform. We need to be active and deal with all the arising challenges. With proper leadership from the government, Hong Kongers will we're willing to follow the government's lead. Now, the government's policy address is a promise to reform. However, whether we can emerge from stability to prosperity depends on whether we can precisely allocate resources to the most needed areas and conduct deeper reform. We have to do things and do things right and do things efficiently. The government officials here have sought to achieve breakthroughs in the past several years. I applaud the efforts of Secretary for Housing, Secretary for Labour, and Secretary for Development. I saw how hard you have been working, so I hope you would contribute more to the reform.
When you are halfway through your journey, the remainder of the journey gets rougher, but you have to be more determined. I support the policy address. I so submit. Mr. Kingsley Wong. Thank you. The theme of my speech is to promote high-quality development using efficient measures. The policy address has taken on board valuable inputs from members. I expect the SAR government to adopt the national policies of high-quality development as their main direction so that we can create results, we can achieve results and share the results with the people. The central government has laid down directions for future development. President Xi talked about employment being the most important issue in people's lives. Giving people good lives and employment provides the country with a stable development. What is meant by high quality full development? It's about providing an environment that is fair, giving reasonable pay. On a micro level, it's not just having a job, but being able to work in a good environment and receiving good pay. I would like to talk about some challenges. In the 60s and 70s, in a number of industries, say for example, garment and plastic items, the economy was blooming as a result. A lot of people spend a long time working in factories. But now we have, before only 2% or so students can go to universities, but now about 30 to 40% of students get a place to study in university. In development of our various centers and a society with high education level, we do need talents from different subjects. There are many of these subjects being taught in universities. But now we have technological development, especially AI. We need to rethink how we change the future planning to enable youngsters to find a job to change their lives. In terms of vocational education, according to the information from 2019 to 21-22, each year the government devotes about $3.4 billion, accounting for just 3.2% of the overall expenditure, much lower than the 13.7% in Singapore. We see that vocational education is not given the importance it deserves. For a very long time, a lot of people with technical capabilities cannot find a job that suits their capabilities. They cannot receive the pay they deserve and cannot move up. As a result, people have to find jobs that are below that supposed level. But we have trainings for aviation repair and shipping. But these are opportunities, but there are no incentives in Hong Kong to encourage young people to take up these jobs. It's a waste. These are essential positions but have to be filled by imported labor. In the policy address in 2022, there is the 5-year target set and KPI set. It says that in 26-27, there will be 60% of the places in UGC universities on the 8 centers. A number of universities were upgraded into University of Applied Sciences. We now see signs that there is a multiple pathway in career and study. But I have some suggestions. Well, 60% of the students studying subjects or courses in 8 centers. There should be clear definitions. These graduates, will they be able to find jobs in industries of these 8 centers? Will they be able to pursue a good career while contributing to Hong Kong's high-quality development? The LWB and other departments will have to work very together so that Hong Kong can contribute to national development. It's estimated that by 2028 there will be a shortage of 10,000 people working in A-center industries. We cannot resolve this relying solely on imported labor. So a reform is necessary and urgent. Ministry of Education published a reform paper in 2023 proposing that about 20% of tertiary educations will have to see new industry, new model, new training put in place to phase out courses and subjects that are outdated. From 2021 to 2023 in the mainland, in order to enhance the quality of education, an additional 17,000 units have been set up, and at the same time 10,000 units have been phased out. In some universities or tertiary educations, there was no careful planning. They just organize courses as they want. So directions will have to be given to these institutions. You will have to consider the current situation before making your plans. The government should play its role as an efficient government in order to match what our development needs with what our working force can provide. Blue-collar jobs pay better sometimes than white-collar jobs. However, youngsters don't want to take up these jobs. Parents deter their children from taking up these jobs as well. But we have to provide a pathway telling youngsters that they will have a bright future. Starting from 2022, the number of levels of vocational occupation has increased from 5 to 8. There are also apprentice places put in place. So even if you're a technical worker, you can still earn a high level of salary and enjoy a high social status. They have the same terms of employment just like someone in the management level. The situation in Hong Kong is different from that in the mainland, but we need to enhance the acceptance, remuneration, and reception of vocational occupation. The development of the economy is to improve people's lives. We have to promote full employment to do that. So riding on the changes brought by AI, I ask the government to stay people-oriented, be efficient, and promote the integrated development of education, talent, and technology. Vocational training should be improved. The quality of our workforce should be improved. so that the local workforce will be able to change in accordance with what the current situation requires, I so speak. Ms. Maggie Chan. President, the goal of this policy address is clear. It aims to enable society to progress, which is in line with what I advocate, that people's lives should be improved and the economy should grow. I have made some proposals on national security, patriotic education, women's affairs, family-friendly measures, expediting the development of the North Metropolis and the Loop, enhancing international exchange, law tech improvement, going global, as well as livelihood issues. I have proposed 48 proposals in 9 areas. Over 30 of them have been taken on board. They are about improving the territory's childcare service, building a family-friendly environment, encouraging childbearing, enhancing the women's fund, tapping into Hong Kong's position as an international center. The Secretary for Justice will lead missions to enhance international exchange. That will be speeding up of the North Metropolis. There will be licensing regime for pet-friendly restaurants. There will be enhanced teaching of our history. What I'd like to talk about is to foster a good effort. We need to have people's needs in mind and address their needs. I would also like to talk about promoting women's development, building good ethos. And in the economic transformation of Hong Kong, we have to make sure that assistance is provided to the underprivileged SMEs, middle classes, youngsters, young barristers, law firms. Assistance should be provided to them to make sure that they are able to tap into their potential during the transformation. In terms of women's development, importance has been attached by this government in this area. In the past few years, the government has put in practical work to further women's development. I highly recommend them. I thank them for taking on board my proposals for strengthening the women's empowerment fund, put in place a number of measures, and enhance the one-stop advisory platform. The government has also launched phase 2 of the breast cancer service and cervical cancer screening, enhancing primary health care for women. This enhances the sense of happiness and well-being of women. In relation to building good ethos, in addition to adding childcare places, enhancing measures to encourage childbirth, which the government has done and done well, but I think more should be done. That is to foster good ethos relating to families. The government should take the lead to forge consensus. The traditional marriage system and traditional values should be incorporated in their efforts. The government should also take the lead to safeguard the traditional heterosexual marriage system and uphold the traditional family values. These are core values. They are the cornerstones of a stable society, which is in line with the overall interest of society. My next question is, what is good ethos? What is good family ethos? I suggest that the virtues, the 8 virtues, should be enhanced and used as the basis. These virtues refers to filial piety, propriety, and integrity, probity, and many others. These are the cornerstones for a stable society. This is what is meant by a gentleman in Chinese culture. You have to have integrity. You have to be righteous. You have to be cordial. You have to be respectful. You have to be appropriate. This is the unique feature of traditional Chinese culture. So I strongly advocate the promotion of the virtues so that the young and the old will be taken care of, respected. There will be harmonious relationship. The government can also put in place measures and policies in addition to publicity to further promote the role of family in society. Say, for example, in education at schools, traditional values should be taught. On a community level, activities relating to fostering good family efforts should be put in place to tackle challenges in the future. I believe that under the guidance of good virtue, Hong Kong will see a more harmonious, beautiful society, which is a very robust foundation for the long-term implementation of one country, two systems.
Now, the Family Council should promote the virtues and ethos, and on top of that, the council should also promote the heterosexual marriage institution as core family values. Now, about support for the disadvantaged SMEs and micro-enterprises, small to medium-sized law firms, and young lawyers, this government has fulfilled its responsibility. The government has helped us tap new economic growth points, leveraging on our advantage as the connector between the mainland and the world. We deepen international cooperation. The government also expedites development of the northern metropolis. We have turned a new chapter of development. I'm fully confident in the future of Hong Kong. At the same time, as we take forward innovative development, the government should pay attention to the various challenges facing the disadvantaged groups, the SMEs, micro-enterprises, in light of socio-economic changes. In light of the fiscal deficit, this year's policy address does not propose any sweeteners. Now, I fully appreciate that we should bear this short-term pain in the face of economic transformation. However, the government should also put people first during the process, so that despite the predicament, members of the public will still be instilled with a sense of bliss. The government should look after the needs of different groups. On the one hand, the government should look after the elderly, the disadvantaged, as well as the grassroots. We have an aging population. In recent years, we heard about tragedies of elderly singletons, bodies not being discovered after passing away for a long time. Mental health problem also serves as a major cause of these tragedies as people face economic pressure. Now, the government should be more proactive in providing care and support for the needy. Now, about the middle class, SMEs, micro-enterprises, small to medium-sized law firms, and young lawyers, the policy address has not provided measures to help them. I urge the government to consider the needs of these groups so that dedicated support measures can be rolled out. Now, no sweetener has been proposed in this year's policy address. But I still hope that the government can provide some relief measures, even if they're not candies proper. The government should dish out the Chinese herbal candy, the jiayingzi, so as to tide people over and alleviate their burden during economic transformation. The government should expedite reforms and exercise innovation so that our people will understand what the government has done. I have 11 specific suggestions. The first one is to hold a competition about families adhering to traditional Chinese values. We should promote the virtues and 4 virtues and 8 morals to enhance the status of family values in social governance. Now, we should also set up a database for elderly singletons or doubletons so as to prevent tragedies. The third point is to make better use of gerontech. There should be public-private partnership programs to conduct research on affordable gerontech products. We should improve the policy to promote aging in place. The fourth suggestion is to dish out consumption coupons for gerontech products. Tax deductions should be put in place to encourage elderly people to purchase gerontech products. Fifth suggestion, childcare centers should be set up in business districts to alleviate the burden on working parents. Sixth suggestion, the textbook allowance should be relaunched with an income asset limits test so that resources can be effectively allocated to help those to help grassroots families. Seventh suggestion, the maximum penalty for failing to protect children should be increased to step up our protection for children. Number 8, for small to medium-sized local law firms, a tax deduction arrangement should be put in place to help take forward the digital transformation and make better use of law tech. Number 9, there should be more support for SMEs and micro enterprises so that they can promote the Hong Kong brand and tap overseas markets. 10th suggestion, there should be an increase in salaries tax allowance and also tax allowances for children, for the hiring of foreign domestic helpers, etc., to alleviate the pressure on the middle class. 11th suggestion, property stamp duty. For transactions below $5 million, only $100 of stamp duty should be charged. For first-time home buyers, there should also be a tax break to help local youths and young families with their home ownership needs. Once again, I thank the Chief Executive for his policy address. I'm sure that the SAL government will mobilize the public so that with a joint effort we can build a better future for Hong Kong. I support the Chief Executive's 2025 policy address and I support the motion for thanks. I so submit. Mr. Chan Hao-fung. Thank you, President. I'd like to focus on housing in this session. This term of government has made a lot of efforts in improving the housing situation in Hong Kong. Our living conditions have improved. There are a number of measures, be it transitional housing, light public housing, and also basic housing units. All these have yielded results, and the government has also increased public housing supply. The waiting time for public housing has been shortened. I'm confident that in the future it will be further shortened to 4.5 years so that those with housing needs can find suitable homes in the future. Now, I'd like to talk about the basic housing unit bill. This bill has been passed, but this is not the end of our work. This is just the beginning, and I'd like to express concerns in 2 areas. The first is this. The bill has been passed, but do we have sufficient manpower to enforce the law. Now, after the 1-year grace period, enforcement action will be taken. Is there sufficient manpower? Are there supporting measures? Will there be chaos arising from enforcement? The second point is that with the passage of the bill, will the living conditions for some deteriorate? Because on a number of occasions, I asked the Secretary whether there's a need to review the bed space or the guest house and accommodation ordinance. Now, this is something related to Ms. Alice Mack, the Secretary. Perhaps she should follow up on the matter, because when the so-called basing housing units become nicer, the rent may be higher, and that those who are not able to afford them will need to move down the ladder. They may rather rent a bed space, and that will cause a worsening of their living conditions. Now, I know that transitional housing is available, and this will gradually become social housing. I just want the Secretary to pay attention to this concern. Now, the second point is about helping the public with their housing needs. And in this year's policy address, there is a chapter on enriching the housing ladder. And that means the ratio has been adjusted and the scope has been broadened to allow more to apply for HOS. And that will help more people find roof over their head. Now, the DAB has been asking the government to relaunch the tenant purchase scheme. Our wish hasn't been granted this year, but Secretary has already promised that the Chief Executive has also promised that next year a specific study will be conducted on this issue. Now, I'd like to explain why our party advocates relaunching the tenant purchase scheme. I'd like to explain the merits. Public rental housing seeks to meet the housing needs of some people in Hong Kong, and that affordable housing can be provided for the tenants. When they're able to accumulate certain wealth, they will be able to move up the housing ladder. Or perhaps after their children have grown up, they will leave the family, and according to the existing well-off tenant policy, these children will have to be taken off the register. And then these two elderly tenants will have to move out for a smaller flat. Now, these are retirees. They remain in public housing. And for the younger ones, they may start to make a living on their own, and yet they don't earn enough to pay for private housing. So in the end, there is no mobility to speak of. So we believe they should take small steps, one at a time, so that they can save up by living in a TPS, and then they can move up to HOS. This is the intention. Now, some criticize the idea as a double benefit. Now, if TPS is a kind of double benefit, why are we allowing green farmers to buy HOS? In the same vein, if you're a green farmer and then you're allowed to buy the HOS, which is for white farmers, then it's another kind of double benefit. In order to promote upward mobility, we should allow tenants living in the existing PRH flats to buy the flat, because they can easily adapt to the existing living environment. And then the resources saved can be reallocated to help others move up the ladder. There are so many merits. I hope I've explained to you. Now, there are also criticisms that if you sell some of the PRH flats, the turnover rate will be affected. is it really true? Let's say for a well-off tenant, the youngsters have moved out, and only the elderly tenants remain, and the flat will not be surrendered until the elderly tenants have passed away. Now, for public housing, in fact, the turnover rate is close to zero. For private housing, the situation is much better. And that is why we should make use of the TPS mechanism to allow true turnover of public housing so that people can continue to move up the housing ladder. Now, of course, there are problems surrounding the tenant purchase scheme. But these problems can be overcome with joint efforts between the government and other stakeholders. We can improve the management of the TPS and solve problems together so as to provide a good living environment for all.
Ms. Connie Lam. Thank you, President. This is the fourth policy address of the Chief Executive. In terms of healthcare, over the past 4 years, the government's healthcare measures have switched to focus on prevention to address the challenges brought about by aging population and chronic diseases. Now, the government has promised to shorten the waiting time for specialist outpatient stable cases by 10%, that is 10 weeks. And also, there are introduction of the degenerative knee joint management program. These are measures to respond to the aspiration of the public for highly efficient healthcare services. In terms of mental health, the 3-tier support system has been introduced in secondary school and piloted in primary school. And also there will be mental health assessments and care available in district healthcare centers. Now, this has weaved a supporting network to mental health from schools to community. By 2026, there will be 6 more centers providing follow-up services on mental health patients. To tie in with the stepped care model for mental health announced last year, this will ensure that the resources are spent in a more precise manner. Citizens of all age can get the support they need according to their situation. In the long run, I hope the government would consider that during the 5-yearly census, we also conduct a survey on mental health prevalence to identify more hidden cases and provide care for them in time. In terms of welfare policies, over the past 4 years, the government's welfare policies have improved a lot. The reform is evident in this year's policy address. As a social worker, I give my thanks to the Secretary for Labour, Mr. Chris Sun, for leading this reform. This is more than investment of financial resources, but also a mindset change. We are gradually dialing up our welfare policies. First, basic care is implemented, then more people-centric and more targeted measures are delivered. In terms of social security, the government has been stepping up support for elderly people and the underprivileged. Besides the CSSA, elderly people and people with severe disabilities are provided with subsidies. A very comprehensive security network has been weaved. Now, despite the reduction of social welfare expenditure because of fiscal tightness, under the 2025 policy address, there will be 4,000 more beds in RCH8, 1,000 more residential care vouchers. The Guangdong scheme will expand from 15 to 24 recognized RCHGs in 8 GBA cities. The model of cross-boundary elderly care has provided more flexible and diverse options for our elderly people. It shows that we are actually integrating with the National Development Blueprint. The government is also improving the supporting network and system for carers. A decade ago, when I was still studying for social work, there was still a lack of government-led carer support policies. Now, this year, $500 million in recurrent expenditure has been earmarked for supporting carers. The working group on aging society strategies will be established, covering a comprehensive range of policy measures, including welfare, elderly care, and healthcare. It is a recognition to the value and contribution made by carers. Now, the government has moved from financial incentives to comprehensive support to encourage birth. Now, the tax allowance for newborn has been extended. There will be 15 more childcare centers in the next 3 years. There are also 1,500 more quota places for fertility treatment in the HA. Now, together with the families with newborn priority house allocation scheme, a three-dimensional support network to support birth has been established. It still takes time to see the effectiveness of these measures, but I applaud the government's effort. Deputy President, as a social worker who has served in various positions, I've seen many struggling people. Some carers have been caring for their sick charges day and night. There are also parents with children with special needs who need to struggle to take care of their children. There are also persons with disabilities who are struggling. Now, on behalf of them, I thank the government for improving the social welfare policies and the support for them. Thank you. As a Legislative Council member, I know that even though with the existence of a comprehensive supporting package, there are still tragedies. And many a times we are still adopting a remedial mindset. We are just helping cases after tragedies have happened. Now, in the past, there are some bad examples. For example, the CNSD has found that some applicants has waited for 7 months for the RCHE vouchers, and there are also sexual assault cases in care homes for persons with disabilities. Yesterday, media reports shows that there is underutilization rate for the social welfare department's services. The situation is very serious, and some centers even select their charges. I think it may be a sign that there are uneven distribution of resources. For example, there is insufficient number of carers in certain homes. Now, I don't believe that these social welfare units are making it hard for the carers deliberately. But the truth is, carers and people in need are deprived of the services they need. So I call on the government to spend the recurrent expenditure of $500 million each year in a targeted manner. We need to make good use of our current subsidy schemes and to ensure that the relevant services like temporary care are fit for purpose. There are also some policy measures, for example, subsidies for carers. They come with a very stringent means test. I think we should relax the threshold. PWDs and carers must receive at least 180 hours of care hours to qualify for the subsidy. As a result, many working carers are not eligible for the scheme. We also need to provide a more comprehensive set of data in terms of elderly people caring for their charges. Now, this is already in progress. Now, without infringing on privacy, we need to establish a comprehensive and effective security network combining Home Affairs departments, the HA, SWD, and NGOs to access this database. But this is a test for the government's innovativeness. Now, overall speaking, the social welfare policies in the past 4 years have shown that the government has been working to grow the economy and take care of the people. We are at a critical juncture from stability to prosperity. Our social welfare policies in the future will require continuous investment. We need to break away from the silo mindset and establish a cross-departmental coordination system and cause a change from being reactive to prevention, from passivity to proactiveness. We need to extend the net to everyone in society. This is a fundamental change. This is also the most challenging task ahead. Our ultimate goal is to build Hong Kong into a place where everyone can live in dignity and happily. Let everyone in Hong Kong enjoy a sense of belonging in this place we call home. I so submit as a positive motion. Mr. Ambrose Lam. Deputy President, the policy address announced measures to internationalize our DSE system. The admission quota for non-local students by universities have been expanded, and I am all for that. But we need to remove barriers. Now, underage students from overseas to study in Hong Kong, they need to be guarded by their guardians. However, the relevant ordinance in Hong Kong only allows parents to designate a guardian. But this would only come into effect after the parents have passed away. In other words, parents from overseas and the mainland cannot designate another person to act as a guardian for underage students. So how would these parents feel safe to let their students study in Hong Kong alone? And what if the parents undergo a divorce when the student is studying in Hong Kong? Now, according to the existing legislation, maintenance cannot be awarded to the carer of the children, but rather it can only be awarded to one of the parents. If the parents are unwilling to pay for the care of the children, then the child would be deprived of care. We need to address these legal issues. Now, this bill concerning the care of children would protect the welfare of children. Now, many lawyers have witnessed how children have suffered in divorce cases. After a side of the parents is awarded maintenance, they neglected the education and daily needs of the child. The child has lost their family as well as education opportunity. Now, in September this year, we were briefed on the implementation progress of this bill and the policy. Now, it mentioned the Children Proceedings Parental Responsibility Bill. Now, in 2024, a survey was conducted. 60% of the interviewees, they are parents, they opposed to the bill. Now, I have studied this survey conducted by the SWT. In August 2024, I wrote to the government that the design of the questionnaire was problematic. Some questions have misinterpreted the Children Proceedings Parental Responsibility Bill. It would cause antagonism among parents who have undergone divorce. Now, it shows that the SWT does not understand the content of this bill and also the idea of co-parenting. So how can the government say they will establish a center to teach parents to co-parent their children? Now, as beneficiaries, parents undergoing a divorce can voice their dissent. But what about children? No one is speaking on their behalf. So the judiciary sector and the legal sector have been striving for the early passage of the Children Proceedings Parental Responsibility Bill. But after 20 years, it is still nowhere near our goal. Actually, many teachers and social workers also support the bill. I call upon the government to deal with this issue seriously and introduce this bill as soon as possible. Thank you.
Mr.